Hey everyone, Oren here, along with my buddy Joe Marcello. We are the Dollar Bin Bandits. And tonight we have a very special guest, someone we want on the show from day one. This is Mr. Mike Jones, publisher of Yeet Presents, the best independent comic book on the market today. Michael, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Looking forward to it.
I just want to start off, when you were a kid, you're out there buying comic books. Did the thought ever cross your mind, hey, one day I'd be publishing comic books myself?
I wouldn't say publishing them, but I think it's any kid's dream that reads comic books. You want to be the next Jack Kirby, the next Avi Sema.
Right.
You want to be that guy, and that's kind of what got me into it. I kind of got late into comic books. I remember seeing them as a kid in school, but they weren't that appealing. And then one day I found an old Jimmy Olsen comic, and man, it was just like, I mean, as goofy as that sounds. And I just started buying them, and then I started drawing them. And then I went to the art teacher and said, how come my drawings don't look like this? Right. And it just kind of progressed on from there. So it's kind of weird how people do that. Yeah, I didn't make it into Marvel.
No, just missed.
Yeah.
So where do you draw your inspiration from writing and drawing and things of that nature for your comics?
I think growing up, I was a middle child, I guess. So Salvi Semel was my inspiration back then. I mean, there wasn't any fancy about his artwork, but he had a bigger brother that everyone said was better than him, type of big people. So I used to copy him constantly. And I think it was more about the art than it was the writing back then to me. If it was good art, I was digging it. And then John Byrne came along, and Neil Adams and all those kind of guys were huge. I think it was later on that I kind of really respected Jack Kirby. When I was introduced to Kirby, he came back to Marvel. His stuff wasn't, I wouldn't say it was top notch, and that kind of blew it off. Because comparing him to some of the other creators that are out there, he just seemed bold to me. Nowadays, I look back on it like, what an idiot you were. Jack Kirby is just, his stuff is through the roof, and I try to copy him on a regular basis now. So art-wise, I would go with the December Brothers and Neil Adams.
Now, speaking of Kirby, just want to what you just said. What did you notice difference-wise? Because I mean, you are an artist. What did you notice difference-wise from his earlier stuff to when he came back? What were some of the things that you picked up on that?
I would say that his anatomy when he came back was really, through the roof type stuff. I mean, if you go back in his Captain America in the 70s, his knees, and it's just like he would get to a point. It was like, well, I'll just put a squiggly line here, and we'll call that good.
Right.
But then you go back and look at his stuff in the Fantastic Four, the early stuff. Well, maybe not the earliest stuff, but the other stuff, the cosmic stuff, from 48 on with Galactus and all that kind of stuff. The backgrounds. It depends on who the inker was too.
Right.
But that made a big difference. But his backgrounds were just, my goodness. I mean, it's just so dramatic, and every pose that the characters were in was just like it was the definition of comic art, in my opinion.
So how did you, and our questions are all over the place, but I apologize.
That's all.
But how did you get started doing this? I mean, I know I understand your want for doing so, but how did you do it? Because I mean, I've always been a creative guy. I've been into video and graphic design, things of that nature. I drew for a while when I was in high school and college. And, I always had those dreams like, yeah, it'd be great to make this a profession. And, kind of take that wherever it goes. But, I don't have the cojones to do, to take a venture like this.
It's an extremely long story. We don't have that. I'll do the Reader's Digest, I guess, version.
Sure. Yes.
Through comic books, I got into art, and through art, I went to college to study art. And while there, they says, well, you can't get a job in art, so become an art teacher. So I became an art teacher. And the whole time to pay for all that, I had to join the military. And those are two things that if you told me in a senior in high school, if you're going to go in the military and you're going to go to college, when I was a senior in high school, I said, you're nuts. I ended up doing both of them. And probably because of comic books and my love of art. So when I became an art teacher, I had students that were interested in this kind of stuff, so we made our own comic book. And that's basically how it happened. And then my career, and that was 1994. And then I got into flying helicopters, so I kind of left the whole thing for a while. And then when I had my son and came back, I noticed he started drawing comic books again. He started drawing comic books. I said, "Here, let me help you out." And he and I pretty much brought the whole what's called Cost of Paper Comics back together. So that's the real condensed version of it. But it was just that's just how it happened.
Now,
Very cool.
you mainly handle Black Fury with Yeet, a character that's been around for a number of years. Different comic book publications put it out. What was about Black Fury that intrigued you as to, okay, I want to continue his journey. I want this to be the guy that I'm going to focus on.
I think because I just realized that there were public domain characters.
Mhm.
I didn't even know that existed. And then the fact that there were so many of them back in the golden age.
Right.
Growing up, I bought comic books, and back when I was a kid, you could buy golden age comic books for probably $2.
Right.
But who wants that old stuff? I want new Spider-Man. What an idiot. That and original art are my two probably biggest regrets. My first page of original art was a Sal Buscema splash page I bought for $8. Right?
Oh, wow.
I've got two Kirby pages that I probably never spent over $40.
Wow.
Back then, how many comic books could $40 have bought?
Totally.
So all these golden age comics, and then you get on to what is a Comic Book Plus. I think I was introduced to that, so you can go in and read all these. And I really don't know how the Black Fury. I knew about the Black Terror, and I don't know how I even found the Black Fury, but he was a lot like the Black Terror, but not as popular. It turns out he was only in 10 issues.
Okay.
So there's 10 stories. I'm just like, well, this is a great guy. He's got a sidekick. He's got a cool costume.
Right.
I just kind of gravitated to him for some reason.
I just gotta think. I think it's pretty awesome that you continue the journey of a character that started, a while ago, and now you're the one telling his story, and you're the one creating his future. Like, how does that feel, though? Like, to know that you're the one now in control of this character.
But I'm not. He's a public domain character.
So
and
other folks.
if you go back in the back issues of Yeet, there was a guy named Eli Jansen. He lives in South Africa. He was a big part of when I started this back up again. And he's kind of doing things on his own. But he did a couple Black Fury stories, and he's like, "Is this okay?" I said, "What do you mean okay? It's not my character. You do whatever you want." Some people get a little uptight about their comic books and their characters, and when they're working on these things. My take on it, it's a comic book. Okay, it's not the end of the world here, right? If somebody wants to take Black Fury and turn him into an alien or whatever they want to do to him, it's not my character. Have at it, go for it. It's probably a better story than I have. But I did, I don't know. It's a weird journey, but if you want to mess with the Black Fury, go for it. I just think he has a cool costume.
That is very true.
Yeah.
Now, could you? I'm just asking because I don't know about the rules of public domain and things of that nature. I just know that you don't mess with Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, or any of the Marvel stuff. But
Right.
If you wanted to take steps to make Black Fury your own, is that doable or?
The only person I know who's done that, and not like I've researched this, is Michael T. Gilbert with Mr. Monster. Mr. Monster was a golden age character that Michael told me he stumbled across. Thought it was a cool character, wanted to do stories with him. It was in the public domain, but he actually went out and researched the person who created him, who was still alive, and he got permission from that person. So now I believe, and I'm not a lawyer, that Michael T. Gilbert owns the rights to Mr. Monster. Do I want to own the rights to the Black Fury? Not really. At any day, I'm probably just going to step away from this, and go on. If I do that and the Black Fury becomes the next major motion picture and I get zero from it, am I going to be upset? More than likely. But oh well, I tried.
Well, if someone is reaching out to you to do a story, I think you've made enough of a dent in the character to stake your claim. So
I don't know. I think there's other people that are doing them. I noticed now on the internet that they're making the action figures of them and stuff like that. So
That's pretty sweet.
No, but we're
Not
not
my
talking to
character.
them. We're talking to you. So that's what
If there was a story on the Black Fury, I'd like to read it. It'd probably be pretty cool. So,
very nice.
yeah.
Well, that's the thing. You get probably a lot of submissions from the guys. A lot of the guys from the Old Guys Love Old Comics group that come in. How do you decide what's going in and maybe what needs a little more work, or is that tough to do?
Not really.
Okay.
It's if I like it, there's very few things that I've turned out.
Okay.
There was one recently. It was more of a political thing. I don't want to do anything with politics at all. Our rules are that it's got to be an original or public domain character, and it's got to be rated PG-ish. We've had a couple issues. There's some pretty good gory violence in there, and I will put a little disclaimer on the cover because I want to be able to hand these out to kids at conventions.
Right.
And I don't want the moms coming back and saying, it should be the parents' responsibility to make sure the kids are reading the right things anyways. But I don't think that a story, or if you see a stand-up comedian, I don't think they need to use vulgar language and graphic depictions of things. I think if you've got a good story, you don't need to put swear words in it, and you don't need to cut heads off and do all that kind of stuff. That if you're into that, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But we're probably not going to do it in our comics. So those are my rules. People say, what are your rules? It's got to be public domain or original, and it's got to be rated PG-ish.
Gotcha.
Basically.
So you make an interesting point there about not wanting to include or not needing to include gore or swear words, which I think I certainly agree with. Although a good time swear word is very funny. However, not necessarily in comics, but however.
I concur.
George Carlin was great at it. To that point, though, I think Marvel and I'm assuming DC as well. They no longer include or subscribe or stick to the comics code. So they're certainly a bit more graphic. They are. I think they have their own versions of their like On Edge comics where they're a little bit more risque. What are your thoughts on some of that, like the state of comics nowadays? What do you think about that?
Ooh, man, that's a tough question. You're talking a Bronze Age kid, kind of silver, kind of bronze, and then got out of it. The Image thing. I mean, I bought more Image comics. I've got long boxes down in my garage. Kind of what you got back there. You can't lift because of the paper is not newsprint for one thing. It's very
glossy paper.
Yeah,
glossy paper, man. Really made those long boxes hard on old guys.
Yeah.
But it just, I don't know if you compare that to what and I think it's all relative. I think it's what you grew up on. The state of comics today. I don't buy new comics.
Okay.
They're $5.
Yeah.
I can go to a dollar bin and buy ones that I haven't read yet, and I do. There's so many good deals out there right now. So I don't buy new comics. People send me some new comics. I'll read them, and there's some good ones out there. There was some that were at Walmart recently. I don't even know who the maker were. It had the Red Rooster or something like that, and I enjoyed those. Those were really good. But I just don't. I don't have time to buy new comic books and read new comic books. I'm too busy doing a lot of other things.
Fair enough.
Right. Now, you were able to get some pretty good name guys in the books. You have William Esner Loebs doing stuff for Yeet. And then most recently, one of my favorite, when I saw you had Mike Barron doing stuff for Yeet, like, how did that come together, man? Because I saw that and I'm like, I love Badger, I love Nexus, and then I see he's on here. I'm like, wait, Mike Barron?
It's been a whirlwind, I'll tell you. I am a comic book fan, a geek. I've seen all the names in comic books, and now here I am. And I have to blame it on my wife for getting me involved with Facebook. I swore I'd never go on Facebook. I'm not going to do that. My friend Todd Higgins says, hey, you're on Facebook. You got to try out this thing. You mentioned old guys who like old comics. So I got on that. I met Jason Mink, who has been a huge influence on this. And I started printing the comic books out again with my son. And I said, hey, I just started sending them out for free. I'd like to send you a comic. And I said, hey, what do you think about becoming the official comic book of the old guys? And Jason was like, sure, why not? And so that was a big thing. Jason and I went to conventions together. We paid for a table. But I think it was when I met Bill Lowe's, William Messner Lowe's. And that was about 10 years ago. My wife's like, hey, there's a guy that's teaching a drawing comic book class. You should go see it. I'm like, yeah, he's supposed to have done stuff in comics. Really, who? Like, who's in Howell, Michigan that worked in comics?
Right.
And she said, his name's Loebs. And I'm thinking, Joseph Loebs. I wasn't really into comics then yet.
Right.
But I read the Max, and I'm like, it can't be that guy, could it? So I go there, and here's this dude with a bunch of 5-year-old kids teaching them how to draw comic books, and these kids could care less. Their mothers dropped them off so they could go shopping. The kids. But I was the most intrigued student there. I mean, I was picking Bill's brain, and he was like, "Who's this nutcase?" So Bill and I became friends, and I think with Bill that opened a lot of doors.
Okay.
Right. So I started going to conventions with Bill, right? And I'm getting a table with Bill. And Bill's starting to work on Yeet and stuff like that. And so Bill introduced me to Mike Brow. Bill introduced me to Al Milgram. Bill introduced me to Jim Steranko. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
That's
I'm
crazy,
going to after hours parties with all these guys at comic
Jeez.
It's bizarre. And it was actually Mike Barron that reached out to me and says, hey, I know Bill's on some tough times. And so I'd like to submit a story. Would that be okay?
What?
Really? Mike Barron? Think about that.
Yeah. Leave your number. I'll get back to you when I have time.
Yeah. So I blame it all on a few people. Jason Mink and Bill Loebs are probably the two biggest.
And someday we'll actually be able to do that interview with Jason Mink again, so we can hear what he has to say.
Yeah, he's good. I really miss him because normally February is when we do the convention here in Mission. It's the Great Lakes Convention. It's the best one. Mike DeSantis puts out a convention. It's like people want to come back to it. And I'm talking about Jim Steranko is calling him up. Can I come back to your convention? That doesn't really happen. So, and I also got introduced to Tom Warzachowski, who's the letterer on X-Men and on everything else, Spawn and all that. Because we become really good friends. He's in my book quite a bit too. So, really appreciate the work that Tom's done.
As I know you mentioned going to comic book conventions and stuff, and obviously right now the state of things, we can't do that, unfortunately. But has the current state of affairs, has that affected what you're doing either positively or negatively by any chance? Or
I don't think it's. I would have figured that people are sitting home, they want something to read.
Yeah.
So I really wouldn't say there's an uptick in subscriptions. My subscriptions are very small. I don't advertise. I don't really push it. Because to be honest with you, you want to know the secret? Every issue that I have, or every subscriber I have, I lose more money. Right? I'm not making any money on this at all. I'm losing money. So people are like, why don't you get more subscribers? Because the more books I print, the more envelopes I have to buy, the more stamps I have to buy, the more bags and boards, and then take them to the post office and mail them.
It adds up.
I'm losing money on every single issue.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I'm not doing it.
I'm not doing it. I have a real job. I'm doing this for the love of it.
Right.
So I really, if we stay at right where we're at, I'm happy. If people want to come in, that's fine. People leave. They're like, oh man, you gotta be mad because you lost 2 subscribers this week. I'm like, so that's kind of the answer.
Oh, I understood. No problem.
Now, going back to the convention and what you're saying before, when was the last time you were absolutely starstruck by meeting someone at a convention? One of the artists or writers or someone who you're just like, I'm actually having this conversation right now?
I would have to say it was Jim Steranko. I'm a huge fan. He's like larger than life.
Yeah.
And Jason and I are just setting up our table at the convention at the Great Lakes. And we happen to be next to the big garage door, which is across the way. And it's in February in Michigan, right? And that's where everybody's bringing their stuff in, right? And so we have our table set up. And because we're with Bill Messner Loebs, and Tom Warzachowski, and Arvell Jones is down the road, and Al Milgram is there, and Angel Medina's over there, and it's just like we're right there. We're in Creators Row. Well, right across the way is Jim Steranko, and he's probably got like 25 tables. I don't know what it is. It's huge, big posters. And, the man is here, but he's not there. But like, I wonder when he shows up. He probably comes in on, I'm sure he's got a cape on, right? Well, they got the door open and it's in the wind's blowing, and Jason went and bought some comics,
Mhm.
right? Because we have free reign. They haven't left the little people in yet, I guess we'll say. We're the big wigs, right? So we can go peruse all those dollar boxes for
Mhm.
first ones. And he comes back and he's got a stack of old Fantastic Four comics he got for $1 each. And next thing we know, the wind blows and this guy comes in and says, "Why doesn't somebody close that goddamn door? It's freaking freezing in here." And there's Jim Steranko standing right at our table, all by himself, no entourage or anything like that.
Wow.
And he goes, and we're like, we're not in charge here. And he looks down at the table and there's a Fantastic Four issue there. And he says, "Was it the Fantastic? I can't remember what issue it was." He says, "That's a damn good issue right there. I did the artwork in that thing." And he stormed off. That was just Jim Steranko, wasn't it? That was kind of cool.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And I don't know if you ever talked to the conventions. I mean, his line is longer. It's really long, but that's because he spends a half hour with each person.
Right.
He'll just start telling you a story, and the guy is just great to have at shows. So
Yeah.
we're hoping he comes back again if we do another show.
I mean, that's a nice thing because I remember the first Son I ever went to was for Image Comics, like you said.
Mhm.
It was at Wizard, the magazine had their own store in Nantucket, and it was like Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, a few other guys. And I mean, I know they were busy. I know there's a big line, but they just talked to each other, kept their head down, just kept you moving out the door. So it would have been nice to say hello. So when you hear stories like that someone's taking the time to acknowledge that people have come out to see them, it's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, I don't get that. The people the fans are there, and they're people that put you where you're at.
Right.
Just give the time of day.
So I know I asked you about your take on comics nowadays, but what are you reading? I know new or old, what have you. I mean, what are you reading nowadays?
Well, I just bought on, I won't say the the site that I go to because I don't want any more competition, because it is an auction site, not eBay. I just bought the first 15 issues of Nexus, which I've never read. Speaking of Mike Barron,
Steve Rude and Mike Barron, yeah.
and another guy I'm a big fan of, who I've been corresponding with a little bit. It's a big secret that's coming out, of Steve Rude. So I really want to.
Wow.
He's not going to have any art in me. Okay, so let's not get excited.
Oh, we thought we were dishing here first.
No, this has something to do with Bill and some book signings. But so Nexus, and believe it or not, last night I read Savage Tales with Kazar, one of the old black and white.
Oh, wow.
magazines. And I'm reading, this is big, The Invisible Men by Ken Quattro, which is the black creators of the Golden Age type of a story. Ken lives literally right down the street. There's another mind-boggling story that my son's best friend, his uncle is Ken Quattro, who I saw on Facebook all the time, and now I'm at a party and he's there. And next thing well, you like him, he likes comic books. Wait a minute, you're the comic historian? And so we hit it off, and I've been to his house, he's been over here, and we're comparing comic books and stuff like that. His collection is through the roof. With the stuff that he has is just crazy stuff. So yeah, that's what I'm reading.
Great.
And I started reading some Cerebus because there's some Dave Sim news in the works here too, through, of course, Bill Lowe's. I've been corresponding with Dave Sim, literally talking to him on the phone. You can't call Dave Sim, he won't answer the phone, but he will call you back. And he did several times. Hey, this is Dave Sim. Wow, okay, that's kind of cool. So I'm trying to read some Cerebus stuff, but I just don't have a lot of time in the day to read. That's what I'm reading. How about you guys? What are you reading? Besides you, of course.
Orange stopped buying new comics, so
I'm just like you. I stopped. 1993 is my cutoff. So anything 1993 and earlier.
Yeah.
I read a lot of Marvel 2-in-1s, a lot of Marvel team ups. I just love how funky it is that they'll put these two random people together in a story, and not all the time it makes a lot of sense, but stories, and it's sometimes they're connected, but most of the time they're one-offs. So even if you pick up a random one,
Right.
you just jump right into it, and you're not having to, oh, what happened, 20 issues ago? Like, who's this guy? I think that's a cool thing about them.
Right. Yeah. You can't go. Those are great.
Yeah.
Two titles right there.
Yeah, I've been sticking to, well, not sticking to. I kind of read a little bit of everything, really. I on average, I do the whole Wednesday thing. So I stick to my usuals, my DC, Superman, Green Lantern, the usual. I wasn't too fond of the New 52 stuff, so I kind of, I wasn't very, I wasn't really sticking to that and reading a lot of stuff. But then their most recent kind of redo, revamp, whatever, I liked what they did. So I started, being a little bit more diligent about collecting those again. But I've been trying to broaden my comic horizons, reading more, independent stuff. I got into a really great series called Crossover that we were talking with one of our other friends about last time, and Donnie Cates was one of the writers on that. So he did a number of series, another called God Country, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, just trying to read more than just the usual DC Marvel stuff. Although I still like it, but about when Oren was the guy that got me into comics, and just when I got into it, he tapped out of it. So
Yeah.
But then I jump back.
yeah, then he jumped back. Then he asked me, "Well, what happened there?"
Yeah, what happened the past 20 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. The story for me was obviously the movie started coming out, and then I started seeing the value of these comic books, and I'm thinking, do I have that? And it's a funny story because I had all my comics back at my parents' house up in the attic, right? And I'm thinking, I think I had like the first appearance of Rocket Raccoon in Hulk 271, was it? I think. I think I have that. So I'm dragging long boxes out of the attic and I'm putting them in the living room. And I made the mistake of telling my mom that Action Comics #1 recently sold for $3 million. So everything I pull out of the box, oh, good, I got that. And she'll go, is that worth $3 million? And I tell her, Mom, no, but it's worth $20. She, well, that's not a lot of money. I spent 25 cents on it.
Yeah.
Return on my investment. But so I started looking at my comics again, and you know how that works. It's probably like, it's like the time I kicked the heroin addict or addiction. Once you go back, it's tough. That's a joke. Probably.
So I'm glad I want to get your take on this, since we did talk. It came up in conversation with Jason. He had some strong feelings about it. What's your take on, or do you even like the Marvel stuff, all the movies and?
Are you talking Jason Pink? You guys interviewed him? How did I miss that?
So we recorded it. We had a great good hour or so discussion with him, and we had a technical issue, so the whole file just got corrupted and we weren't able to publish it. So now we're trying to play catch up and reschedule and kind of capture lightning in a bottle twice. So but in that
it would be fun not to steal his thunder, because you need to do a solo show, but to have a team too, because I'm kind of his Robin, but his Batman. Or I'm Reed Richards, he's the Thing, or
I think that's about right.
He's the smarter one, anyways. He's written books and stuff. I just got pictures and whatnot. But no, you're talking about the movies. I can't believe that people would even complain about it. I mean, when I was a kid growing up, if you could see even the very first Fantastic Four movie, which I loved, I had to buy it on something like that. To see the characters that you grew up reading come alive, and what they can do with the special effects now. It's not the Hulk of Lou Ferrigno. It's not the Spider-Man of the Electric Company. You've got some special effects here that are just mind-boggling. Are the stories exactly like the ones that you read? No. I mean, my goodness, you're seeing Thanos. You're seeing all the characters, Thor with his hammer. I mean, and the casting on these characters, right? Could they have a better Captain America? I don't think so. Could they have a better Thor? I don't think so. Could they have a better Aquaman? I don't look anything like Aquaman that I remember, but I love him. I mean, I wish they would be a little more traditional. And that's why I've always said, if you're going to do the Fantastic Four movie and make it successful, have it take place in 1961. Have them get on a spaceship and get bombarded by cosmic rays. How hard is it? The stories are written.
Yep.
You don't have to rewrite them.
That's 100%.
I don't mind a twist here, but you don't have to rewrite them. Do I watch everything? I think it's impossible to watch everything, which is awesome for the comic book community. I've never watched Batwoman, right? I'll try to watch a couple of the other ones, CW, I've watched the Arrow and stuff like that, but there's so much stuff out there. How can you complain about it?
No, I definitely don't. I mean, they keep making them. I'll keep watching them. I just shovel my money in their pockets. But I can certainly respect someone's opinion on them.
Right.
People like what they like, and it's like I grew up. My first Superman will always forever be Christopher Reeve, and he is the litmus test for Superman. Now there've been some pretty good portrayals of them in TV and movie, but I'm always saying, well, yeah, Brandon Routh was good, but so look, I agree with you. I am so excited to keep seeing this stuff on the screen. I mean, I can't wait for every Friday right now to see WandaVision. Like everyone else.
WandaVision, I watched the first 2 episodes with my wife and I was like, what the heck is this? He gave up on it, and I said it on Fans of Yeet Presents, I think. I was like, give it some time, man. What's the matter with you? I'm like, God, it's so stupid. I mean, what is this? And now we're totally addicted to it.
Oh, yeah.
Last 2 episodes yesterday, we went on a little
Yeah.
So good. I mean, it's just like.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, but I think it's great that they're not too loyal to the original subject matter, because there's really, if they're playing out the exact storyline, then what's going to happen.
Right.
You're not going to be on the edge of your seat, although you probably still will be. But
they may throw a twist in her. What I'm not liking about the Marvel one is, what are they going to do about Stan Lee now?
I think they're going to, from things I've heard in interviews with people and read here and there, is that I think they're going to include like Stan Lee related Easter eggs. So in WandaVision, there was a scene where a license plate, not that anyone's, I certainly won't pick this up, but a license plate, the set of numbers was Stan Lee's birthday. And it's stuff like that, and along with the Easter eggs that they sprinkle out throughout the episode,
right.
Like Ellis Avenue is named after Warren Ellis, for writing certain storylines and whatnot. So it's along those lines. So I think you're going to see Stan Lee stuff like that, maybe like a picture back here,
right? And we won't even get into the Stan Lee controversy, but take on Stan Lee is, you got to admit, without Stan Lee, very little of this would have happened.
No, definitely.
Of course, Jack Kirby is a huge part. The people that bash Stan Lee, and Jason knows this. People that bash the creators, period, or this, or the people who are going to bash the movies. If you don't like it, nobody's forcing you to go to the theater.
Right.
Don't go. If you don't like such and such art, this guy's art, it's making you buy it.
Right.
There's no reason to bash these people. There's no one that's going out of their way to make you miserable.
Right.
So why are you miserable? Anyhow, more on a lighter note.
Well, I want to talk. You're a dollar bin bandit too, turns out. What are some of the biggest picks that you've gotten out of the dollar bin that you can just say to yourself, like, I just got this out of a dollar. I can't believe what I just got.
I don't know if it's a dollar bin, but I would say that just the stuff I bought off the spinner rack today is like I said, Hulk 271. I remember pulling that off the spinner rack and saying, a talking raccoon, really? This is where we're going with the Hulk? And I almost put it back. Right. And I'm glad I didn't. Right? But probably more that I remember the ones that I didn't get. I mean, like I said, I pulled them out of the attic and I'm looking through them. Do I have that? And it's like Spider-Man. I had Spider-Man 298, 299, 301. Where's 300? What was I doing? How did I miss 300? I could see 298, 290, but you missed number 300, which is now a huge book, you know, and I don't have it. And I'm not going, and I have She-Hulk 2 through everything.
Right.
Right. On the first She-Hulk, not the John Byrne one, but the first one. I don't remember.
Right. Savage She-Hulk, yeah.
Why did I not get number 1? Did I pull it out of the spinner rack and say no? But I think it did a lot of stuff in the military. So I think I was probably out in the jungle eating MREs or something when that thing was on the spinner rack. By the time I came back, it was gone. So I can't remember anything that I really pulled out of the dollar bin. But I'll confess to this story. And Todd Higgins, who I mentioned, was my nemesis growing up. We got wind that an old building in our town had old comic books in it. They were going to demolish it. So we had to go save those comic books.
Right.
And so a couple of us got into the building, which they were going to tear down the next couple of days, and found a box of comic books. And they were all from 1957 to 1962.
Wow. You did the right thing.
And we're leafing through this cardboard box, no bags or boards.
Right.
And I started looking at some of the dates, and I'm thinking, oh, come on, be in here. Number 1, Fantastic Four, number 1, you've got to be in here, right? Or any of those ones. No Marvel comics.
Oh.
I got some decent, like Justice League number 8 or something. So that was
cool.
kind of
That's pretty cool.
You know, and did I steal? I'm not sure. Would they be
here today?
Would they be here today if it wasn't for us? They would have been demolished.
Yeah. So
if there are cops
you're
out there,
yeah, you're a hero.
You gave them their forever home.
What about you guys? What have you guys pulled out of the dollar bins? Oh, and you probably asked this to Jason. I wonder what Jason's answer was. Well, I just saw it today. He's posting that one from 1947 after $1.
Yeah.
So that was probably his.
He mentioned he got like Daredevil, I think number 8, but it was coverless out of it. But he was pretty jazzed about that.
Right.
I think my biggest pull was recently. I got The Crow number 1.
Oh yeah.
And that's $200 comic. I saw it in there. And I'm saying to myself, it's probably a reprint. And if it's not in a dollar bin, it's probably all sorts of jammed up or, you know. And I got home and I was like, oh, you know, I have the graphic novel. I love The Crow. And I'm like, yeah. And I looked at the dates and everything and it checked out. And I went back to the store and the guy's like, hey, man, I think you got a Crow number 1 last time you were here. And I was like, I think I did. And he's like, good.
Did I?
A lot of money. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, it is. Later. Unfortunately, I don't get to the comic book store as much as I would like to. I have 2 little kids, and the comic book store that's closest to me is a little off the beaten path. So whenever I see Oren, we go together, and I go around with him. So I haven't gotten much lately, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't think it's all about the value of your comic book anyways, you know. Of course, I want to retire someday, and I'll probably sell them all. You know, you see these people, oh, look at the score. You know, you always hear the story of them finding a collection from a little old lady and they take advantage of them. You know, and I couldn't talk to you if you even did that. The husband dies, she has all these old dirty comic books. And she calls you up because you're a comic book geek and you realize she's got the treasure and you offer $100 and she takes it. You know, that doesn't make sense to me. I've seen stories happen like that before.
Yeah. Well, speaking of comics, because you do an independent comic, what was the first independent comic that you read, or the first independent comic that really caught your eye?
I don't even, the Freak Brothers, maybe something like that, because I grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania. We had one little store that had a spinner rack, and that was our source of comic books. Right. I would go up to the bigger town and they would just have a newspaper stand, but I probably, even if I saw them, I probably wouldn't have bought them, because if I had enough money, I was buying the Marvels. If I had a little extra left over, I'd buy some DCs. Would I spend the money on independent ones? Probably not, especially not in black and white. Jeez, I would do that. I remember the Freak Brothers were, somehow I got a couple copies of that, but I was never a big independent guy. Now big time into it. I think the talent's out there, and there's some good stuff out there right
Most definitely. And what are some titles besides Black Fury and Yeet and stuff like that that you would suggest to people? Maybe some older titles or stuff that you've stumbled upon, maybe through a dollar bin. That's comics that maybe excuse me, didn't catch your eye the first time around, but you sort of rediscover them now.
now. Are you talking about what's out there now? You're not talking about our stuff.
Oh no, like older stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I mean, knowing Bill Loeb's now,
Mhm.
stuff that he's done, obviously his journey stuff is incredible. I'm pushing that to people who have contacts in places that I hope someone will notice those things. So his journey stuff is really good stuff. And then his stuff before that, I get it through his collection, which I have down in my garage right now. He just doesn't have the space to do it. And I'm looking through some of the stuff that he's done, which is just incredible. But on my old stuff, I like I said, I don't know a whole lot of it. Matt Wagner's Grendel I'm starting to look at, and Nexus by Mike Barron.
Right.
I'm kind of looking at.
That's cool stuff.
So yeah, it's all good stuff.
All right. What's the best link for people to sign up for Yeet?
No, probably the best thing to go on Facebook, Fans of Yeet Presents.
Okay.
Our subscription in order to get the book. Patreon is patreon.com/Yeet Magazine.
Okay, so we can put a link to
You'll
that.
see it in the Fans of Yeet Presents stuff. That's the best way of going about it.
All right, so we can put that in the link.
Yeah, we'll include your links. We'll plug it as much as you want. Mike, thank you so much. It's been it's been great, interesting talking to you. Hopefully, if we can get Jason and you together sometime.
So everyone go check out Fans of Yeet Presents on Facebook. Send Mike a message, let him know that you're interested in getting the books. And Mike, thank you again so much for coming on. This has been awesome, man. And we'd love to have you on again.
All right. I'd love to be on again. Thanks a lot, guys.